Hey YouTube, it's Robert Hall, and in today's video I want to talk to you about the different things that can cause Godox lights to misfire. If you guys don't know, I have taken over the Godox user group, which is a large group of Godox users, 40,000 people that have a group on Facebook where they use to share images and help each other out. And we see a lot of repeat questions and repeat discussions in that group, usually around the same few topics. So I'm trying to build a small FAQ list. That way we don't have to have these conversations over and over. And the first and most common thing that we have to talk about in there is why Godox lights are misfiring. A misfire means either your flash or flashes did not fire at all, or they fired at a power setting inconsistent with what you had set. Like you're at 1/32 power, but for some reason you get a boom, full power flash. Reason number one, probably the most common culprit, would be channel interference. All the Godox equipment uses the 2.4 gigahertz, which is extremely popular for any consumer product to be on. And when other electronics are using the same radio frequencies to distribute information, things can get a little weird. So my first recommendation is get off of channel 1. In fact, get off of channels 1 through 4 in general, and try using a higher, less common channel. One of the cool things about the Godox V1 is that it has a feature in the menu that allows you to scan your area for the best available channel. So if I scan my studio, it tells me that 19, 18, 23, 29, 22, 1, 5, and 15 are the best. So in this instance, because it's first on the list, I would choose channel 19. So if you're experiencing misfires, the first thing that you can always do is change your channel. And again, if you don't have access to the scan for best channel, then I recommend at least starting with using something high up in the 20s or even 30, 31, 32. That way you're far away from channel 1 through 4, which is where you're likely to get interference from more consumer electronics. Number 2, low or alkaline batteries. Now, this doesn't really apply to the master speedlights, but it does apply to any of the triggers. All of the triggers use AA batteries, and one issue with them is that they're designed for standard non-rechargeable batteries. And when you use rechargeable batteries in them, they don't communicate in the same way because they're not on the same voltage. This is the same reason that the batteries will not display full when you're using a full set of rechargeable batteries. So changing your channel doesn't help. Try switching to regular AA batteries that do not recharge. Also, when your batteries get very low, it's possible that they're not sending out the voltage required to send those signals, so that can be an issue as well. Try changing out to fresh, full batteries. Next up would be the ID function. Now in this instance, your lights wouldn't trigger at all if your ID does not match, but some of the Godox lights have an ID function that allows them to only be triggered by other devices that share that same ID. It's a 2-digit number that you can set within the custom menu from 01 through 99 that allows you to make sure that only your devices are communicating with each other. This is great if you're in a neighborhood that almost everybody uses Godox, and maybe you're at a wedding venue and there's another wedding in that same venue, might be another Godox photographer. This is a great feature that allows you to make sure that your lights are more likely to only be triggered by your own equipment. The next potential issue that would cause a no fire situation is if you're using things like the V860 version 2, then you might be in the optical menu rather than the wireless menu for your slaves or your master. Now this has been removed on lights like the V1, but if you're using something older, this could still be an issue. So as you cycle through the different menus here, you can see in the top left corner there is a lightning bolt symbol, and that means that you're using optical slave rather than using wireless slave. So you want to make sure that whether you're using it as a slave or a master, that you have this little like radio tower symbol in the top left corner. That is the wireless menu. The next reason this would only be if you're in a tight space, but it might be that your flashes are too close together. So right now I have a V1 and a R2 Pro Mark II, both in channel 29, and this is activating group A, this is receiving group A. And when they're right next to each other, I can hit test all day long and it will not fire. But as soon as I get about a foot away, fires just fine. There's also this function in the R2 Pro Mark II that allows you to choose between 1 to 100 meters or 0 to 30 meters. So if you're always working in close distances, using the 0 to 30 meters will give you a little bit more reliability up close. You can see I can now bring them much closer together, and it triggers just fine. Next would be dirty contacts. So these right here, all these contacts and connections both on your camera and on your trigger or flash equipment, can get dirty. If there is some dirt and grime in there that blocks the connection, then the signal can't get through. So make sure that's clean. It's also possible that your contacts just aren't aligned really well on your camera shoes. This happens a lot if people are trying to use one trigger on another brand. So some triggers like the Sony trigger just have different pins and alignments in a size shoe than the others, and things don't really align well. Just make sure that you have a very secure connection and that it's tightened down on your flash. That way, even as it wiggles throughout the day, it's not loosening and getting out of alignment. My final recommendation would be make sure that you're not using electronic shutter or electronic front curtain sync in the case of Sony. Now, I've actually shot a whole reception in electronic front curtain sync, and for whatever reason, like for me, 1 out of 20 flashes just will misfire. Whether everything else is set up properly or not, I always still get some type of misfires occasionally if I have electronic front curtain sync on my Sony cameras. But in general, electronic shutter will never trigger flash because no camera using an electronic shutter can send a signal and sync with flash. It's just the systems don't work together. I think I've talked about why this is in this video up here, so you can check that out if you want to see more information, but make sure that you are using a mechanical shutter. The only other thing, I've not experienced this directly, but the only other thing that I've seen be a cause for misfiring or delays is Redeye. If your camera is applying some type of Redeye reduction, this could only apply to if you are shooting JPEGs, then it's possible that that is causing a delay and or not firing your flash at all. So don't use that. If your flash is off camera, you won't have to worry about Redeye. Alright guys, that is all the common advice that I can offer for troubleshooting a Godox piece of equipment misfiring. If you've tried everything that I've talked about here and you're still getting some type of misfiring issue, then you might want to look into if it's happening on other equipment when you use that same camera, because I've seen people have to have the top of their camera replaced, like the hot shoe assembly replaced, because there was a problem with that. Or you can look into, if it's only being experienced with one piece of equipment, you should look into a return or exchange. Hope this video helped you out. Leave a like if it did. Subscribe if you want to see more. And until next time, keep on shooting.